120 points. The second and third spot, the double chance still up for grabs between Hawthorn and Geelong, but Collingwood have snuck into the 5 last night. Melbourne will be hoping desperately to rectify the situation at the Western Oval this afternoon. But that is the interest, and it could all come down to the clash between Collingwood and Geelong. They really eclipsed the Brisbane Bears. Frankie Coughlin had a field day in front of goal. There's one of his. The other big winner up forward, you just saw in picture there, was Stuart Lowe. Sweeping a long hand pass, Dwyer taps it on to Frankie Coughlin and he goals. But they did catch up with him in the end. In fact, it was Mark Zanotti. Laid him to rest, but it wasn't for too long. Stuart Lowe, as I mentioned, had a wonderful day. Kicked 7 for the Saints. Tony Lockett being a late withdrawal out of that lineup. But Lowe was an ample replacement.
Oh, I don't know about a grand final berth. Very hard to tell with that opposition, but without Lockett, it was a good second half.
Well, Bernie, you...
Either way, I'll twist these players around and many more could have fit in, but I went for Gilbert McAdam. I thought he was very effective in a pretty ordinary first half by StKilda, but continued that form, was one of the main prime movers in the second half. Stuart Lowe, 7 goals too, was uncharacteristically accurate yesterday, but took on the added responsibility at centre forward, and David Grant was a real architect across the half-back line. But it was a pretty ordinary performance up till half-time by the Saints, as they were a little indirect. Maybe it was because Lockett wasn't there that they tend to fiddle around and overuse the ball a bit, but there's a sign of things to come when they piled on 3 quick goals in time one in the second term and then completely demolished a pretty insipid Bears lineup in the second half. To the 17 goals 8 to 2 goals 4 in the second half speaks for itself. And the half-back line, well, Frawley, Morris, Grant, as I mentioned, Harding, they just had an absolute birthday and ran away from their opponents. And here we see Shackey. Well, that'd be the only kick he had, and that was the first time I saw Lawrence Shackey yesterday, I'd have to agree with Bernie Quinlan's remarks earlier in the year.
Kelvin, the second and third teams, have they got a right to be worried about StKilda?
I think you always got to. I mean, they've got some very talented players there.
That's what I mean. If they all hit the form on the one day.
They just worry me. They're a little bit brittle in certain areas around the flanks at times, but gee, when you've got blokes like Winmar, Burke's playing very well, unobtrusive type. That Greg is a strong player. McAdam, of course. Winmar's hitting top form, Low at centre forward, so they've got the basis of a great side.
Kelvin, they're not an overly talented side, the Brisbane Bears. Brad Hardy out of the side. Did you hear any rumours about that one? Was there some trouble in the camp, or was he dropped purely on form?
Well, I mean, I can only go what I heard. I heard there was a little bit of trouble in the camp. Maybe he could have apologised for something that went on during the week and decided not to, but I'm not 100% on that. But certainly he didn't. He wouldn't have made much difference. It was a very ordinary performance by the Bears in that second half.
Yes, the final margin, 120 points. We'll take a break and then analyse Sydney's performance against Fitzroy in Sydney.
And Stuart Lowe showing his strength and skill, keeping the man off and keeping his eye and bringing the ball into his body. Beautiful mark.
And here's Kain Taylor. He begins his leap probably from a long way back and has to keep his eyes, importantly, on the ball and his concentration. It was a very fine mark. And I think, Bob, you have an announcement regarding this mark, because we hand-passed it over to you, mate.
Well, Ron, I came and looked at it first. I thought it was an excellent mark and said, I think he could win this. And Ron concurred.
Yes, we concurred for the first time in our lives.
Yes, wasn't that nice? And unfortunately, the generation gap. Was there any free fall or fast forward or anything on that?
Feedback, Bob.
Feedback, whatever.
From his knee.
Yeah.
Beautiful mark by Kain Taylor.
Right, thank you, gentlemen, very much. It's like listening to Dad and Dave, isn't it?
Beg your pardon?
Dear.
Am I Dave?
Goals of... No, you're not. You're Dad.
Oh.
Let's go on with goals of the week now.
Righto. And the last one, Nicky Winmar. A game at Moorabbin yesterday. Very slippery conditions, and Nicky Winmar showing his great skills and kicking that one through from about 50 metres out.
OK, and it's unanimous. We'll rub